Okay, I think you guys want a new giraffe video. For those who missed it, a while ago, I uploaded a video that looked at 4 bizarre extinct giraffe relatives. As if this group of animals wasn't weird enough in the modern day, back in the past, they had some even weirder looking relatives. Well, it seems that you, like me, couldn't get enough of them, and wanted to see me talk about it some more. So, I present to you more weird giraffe relatives, starting with the earliest occurring and ending with the most modern. To begin with, we're travelling back 14 million years to the Miocene period to meet a genus called Injana. This genus is known from fossil material found in Saudi Arabia and Iraq. The fossils found at these sites represent 2 species. Those in Iraq belong to the species I. hazimi, which lived during the later Miocene, and the ones from Saudi Arabia belong to the younger species I. arabicum, which lived during the middle Miocene. Now, despite having some differences that I'll talk about later, the pair do share one similar feature: a pair of flat ossicones that extend horizontally from just above their eyes, which give this genus a very nice built-in sun hat. However, from my research, I couldn't figure out why these ossicones are the way they are. The 2 species, however, differ slightly in their ornamentation. Skull fragments from I. arabicum show evidence that this species possessed a pair of smaller ossicones that sat in front of the larger pair. This has yet to be found in I. hazimi, so it's unclear if they possess them. Having these 2 pairs of ossicones does make it hard for researchers to determine where this genus sits within the Giraffidae family tree, as this feature has evolved multiple times in other members, such as the subfamily Paleotraginae, the genus Giraffocaryx, and a group we'll talk about later in this video. However, recent analysis suggests it is more likely related to the aforementioned Giraffocaryx. This was gathered from shared characteristics between the cranial, dental, and postcranial remains of the animal. But for Injana, the postcranial remains may not be an effective way of telling their relationship, as they may not even belong to this genus. In 2023, a paper was published that named a new species of giraffe relative named Oreoleptia, based on fossil material from the Siwalik Hills of Pakistan. The material of this species consisted of a complete metatarsal bone, which the paper says is virtually identical to one found in Saudi Arabia that was attributed to I. arabicum. They go on to state how this may mean that I. arabicum may in fact be Oreoleptia, and that the skull of I. arabicum may also belong to this species. But this is yet to be confirmed. Up next, we have a genus that derives its name from the Hindu god of creation, Brahma. This genus sits within the subfamily of Shiva, a group that is characterized by being shorter than modern-day giraffes, but having a much stockier build. The genus itself is home to several species whose relationships to one another are a point of discussion, as no one is quite sure who is related to who. Originally, differences in the species' tooth morphology and size were used to differentiate them. However, this was later found not to be a useful way of telling them apart, as the measurements and shape of the teeth were pretty much the same between species. Nowadays, the skull of the animal is used. The skull of this genus is rather short and possesses 2 pairs of ossicones. One pair is situated close to the back of the skull and points outwards. The second pair grow from the middle and form a rather impressive structure, consisting of the 2 ossicones and a large base in the middle from which they grow. It is the size and development of these structures that is used to tell the species apart. These species were also seemingly adapted for several different habitat types, based on the animals they were found alongside. Brahmatherium fossils are often found alongside both gazelle and antelope fossils, animals that are adapted to living in more open habitats. as well as fossils of mouse deer, which often are found in wooded wetland habitats. This has led to the idea that Brahma must have been adapted to survive in both open and wooded areas, an adaptation that allowed this species to have quite an extensive range, with fossils being found in Turkey, India, and all the way in Southeast Asia. Moving forward just 2 million years, we meet the Beast of the Henan province, Honanotherium. Named after its place of discovery, that unsurprisingly being the Henan province of China, this genus is notable for being roughly the height of a modern-day giraffe, with slightly shorter legs and having a pair of impressive ossicones which sit just above the animal's eye sockets, and measure at 1.5 or 2 times the length of the animal's brain case. The genus is home to 2 species. The first is H. scloseri from the previously mentioned Henan province, and the second was found in Iran and given the name H. bernori. These 2 species lived at the same time, but there were some slight differences between them. Most notably, H. bernori is smaller than H. scloseri and has a different tooth morphology. The differences in teeth may be due to the habitats these species were occupying at the time. See, both species lived in what is known as the Permian biome, a massive multi-habitat area that stretched from the Balkans to China all the way down to Africa. Analysis of wear patterns of giraffids found within this biome shows that there was a diversity in feeding styles present, with those found in the western regions, such as H. bernori, predicted as being browsers feeding off higher vegetation, and those found in the east, such as H. scloseri, showing signs of being mixed feeders, feeding on both high and low-growing vegetation. This was likely the result of different habitats in the area at the time, with the Permian biome comprising of different habitats with different vegetation types like wetlands, forests, and grasslands. Existing alongside Honanotherium and Brahmatherium, we have one of the most well-known and recognized extinct giraffe species, the truly enormous Shivatherium. This genus originated in the late Miocene and lasted until the Middle Pleistocene, some 800,000 years ago. During that time, the genus managed to inhabit a wide range, with fossils found across parts of Africa, Spain, Russia, and India. The genus is known for its immense size, thick limb bones, and almost antler-like ossicones. This large size of the animal led to some confusion about its placement within the mammal family tree. At the time of its discovery, Shivatherium was seen as the so-called missing link between ruminants, a group that has a specialized stomach adapted for digesting vegetation and consists of giraffes, deer, and bovids, and the now defunct pachyderms, a group that contained rhinos, hippos, and elephants. This led to a lot of early depictions of the animal looking like a weird hybrid between a moose and a tapir, I guess. But it was later found to be a relative of the modern-day giraffe, and became the namesake of the subfamily Shivatheriinae. The large size of this genus, particularly the species Shivatherium giganteum, does lend it a pretty cool distinction, that being that it was the heaviest ruminant to have ever lived. A paper published in 2016 analyzed the fossil material of S. giganteum and used a computer program to map a layer of tissue over the bones and predict how much this tissue would weigh. The results of this give the animal a weight of between 1,000 to 1,500 kilograms, which indeed makes it the heaviest ruminant ever. This paper does go on to mention that this is on the lower ends of weight estimates, as the study didn't include the weight of the animal's ossicones, which are believed to only be present in male individuals. This means that male Shivatherium could push this number even higher. Another cool thing about this genus is that we might have gotten a chance to see it in the flesh. and by we, I mean our early ancestors. The period in which this species was alive overlaps with that of many of our early ancestors, such as the Australopithecines and most notably Homo erectus, which may have hunted and butchered this giant. At a site called Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, hundreds of stone tools were found alongside multiple fossils of small to large-sized mammals, including some that belonged to the species Sivatherium morusium. Interestingly, several mammal bones from this site show cut marks that may have been made by the stone tools. The theory is that the owner of the stone tools used them to butcher the carcasses. However, the bones of Sivatherium lack these cut marks. Also, a paper published in 2014 studied the site and concluded that butchery and human hunting would have made up a small percentage of the reason why so many mammal fossils were found. And instead, the reason behind it is the fact that the site represents a lake that attracted all these mammal species, most of which would then die of natural causes. Sadly, our species probably didn't get a chance to see this magnificent creature, as it went extinct towards the end of the Pleistocene. The reason for this has been stated to have been related to climate change. Around this time, the Earth was in the midst of an ice age, which would have made the climate colder and drier. This is because as global temperature drops, more water gets stored in ice sheets, thus limiting the amount of water available for the natural water cycle. This meant that the areas Sivatherium occupied would have become arid, which in turn led to the vegetation this animal was feeding on to slowly disappear. Interestingly, this lack of food can be seen in the fossilized teeth of this animal. A surprising number of Sivatherium teeth have evidence of enamel hypoplasia, which means that their enamel was underdeveloped. This is because, due to the lack of food, Sivatherium females would have been malnourished and thus couldn't produce milk for their offspring. As a result, the babies would also have been malnourished from a lack of milk, leading to the spread of underdeveloped teeth seen in this genus. This resulted in the extinction of the genus long before the arrival of modern-day humans. Or so we thought, as there is some contested evidence that suggests this genus survived right up until 5,000 years ago, and thus would have existed alongside modern humans. This comes from two notable sources. The first are a pair of cave paintings, one found in the Sahara and one from India, which are said to depict a creature reminiscent of Sivatherium. The second comes from a site in Iraq, where in 1928, a ring rein from an ancient chariot was uncovered that had an animal atop it that many people say depicts a Sivatherium. While the first piece of evidence isn't that conclusive to me, I mean, this one looks like an aardvark, and this one looks like a modern-day giraffe, only with shorter legs, and seemingly having ossicles that grow out of its back. The second, however, is a little bit more interesting. As stated, it was found in Iraq, and was dated to be around 5,000 years old. This date puts it as being made by the ancient Sumerians, an early civilization that would have occupied the region. The ring would have been used to decorate a chariot, so it's no surprise that whoever made it gave it the shape of an animal. This animal, however, appears to be rather well built, and has short antler-like structures atop its head, and a pair of protrusions sticking out from just above the eyes, all of which led several authors to draw similarities between the figure and Sivatherium. The animal also appears to have a nose ring and reins attached to it, which led to the idea that not only had this genus lived to exist alongside modern humans, but that humans had somehow managed to domesticate this animal to an extent. This idea was unsurprisingly challenged. See, the antler-like structures on the head of this animal were pointed out as being incomplete, with the ends clearly having been broken off. These missing pieces were later discovered in 1977, and, when reattached, made the figure resemble a fallow deer more than Shiva, which would also be a much more plausible candidate for the domestic animal depicted in the figurine, as deer at several points throughout history have been successfully semi-domesticated. This explanation didn't bring an end to the Shiva idea, as other authors state how this doesn't explain the presence of the orbital protrusions or the general stocky build of the animal. Plus, the structure of the horns was also noted as perhaps being the result of the genus Shiva possessing high levels of variation in these structures. So, is the animal a deer or a Shiva? Well, as paleontologist Darren Naish put in a blog post in 2011, we'll never really know what the person who created the figurine was trying to depict, and the possibility that artistic license took precedence over anatomical accuracy ranks as likely, especially when the figurine isn't really a match for a Shiva or a fallow deer. Finally, we come to a relative of the giraffe that you can still see alive today, the pronghorn of North America. Despite their genus name Antelope translating to antelope goat, this animal isn't closely related to either. I mean, it's in this video, so you take a stab at what it's most closely related to. Yes, that's right, it's the giraffe. This group split from the last common ancestor between it and the Giraffidae family roughly 20 million years ago at the beginning of the Miocene. And despite only having one representative alive today, the family was highly diverse in the past, particularly in the late Miocene. During this period, several genera of pronghorn appeared, all with unique horn shapes. Notice how I said horns and not ossicones, as despite being related to giraffes, these head ornaments are quite unlike ossicones. In fact, they're pretty unlike any head structure seen in animals. See, unlike ossicones that are covered in skin, these structures are covered in a layer of keratin like modern-day bovids. However, unlike modern bovids, the pronghorn shed these structures every winter in a manner similar to deer, growing a new pair from a backwards curving horn core. So yeah, I don't exactly know what to call these, so I'll stick to horns. Getting back to the extinct genera, the diversity in horn morphology resulted in several unique shapes. Some possess spiral-like horns like modern kudu, others appeared to have 4 or 6, and others had highly asymmetrical pairs. This diversity could honestly make its own video. So if you want a video looking at weird pronghorn genera, then drop a comment below. This diversity towards the end of the Miocene coincided with the spread of savanna across most of North America. This spread of open grassland seemingly suited the pronghorn's slender build and is seen as the driving force behind some of the features seen in the modern species, such as its teeth. Despite being predominantly browsers, the pronghorn has teeth more adapted to grazing on grass, which would have been present in the ancient savanna. This habitat also allowed the family of Antelope Capridae to take advantage of another of its unique adaptations, that being the ability to run really fast. In fact, modern pronghorns are the second fastest land animal in the world, having reached a recorded top speed of 62 miles per hour. This speed is helped by the aforementioned slender build of the animal, as well as its ability to consume and process large amounts of oxygen when running. The need for such speed was thought to result from pressure from predators. At the time, North America was home to several predators that could have hunted and rivaled the speeds of the pronghorn, most notably the American cheetah, Maiasionix, and the running hyena, Chasma porphetes. However, it has been pointed out that adaptations, such as the slender body, already existed long before these predators arrived in North America. So the jury is out on why they needed to run this fast. One adaptation that was probably selected for by predators is the pronghorn's amazing sight, with their eyes being set wide apart, giving the animal nearly 300 degrees of vision. The animal's eyes are also the largest of any hooved mammal in relation to body size. Needless to say, all these adaptations lead to the animal having good eyesight. Eyesight so good that on a clear night, pronghorns are said to be capable of seeing the rings of Saturn. Yeah, not quite. See, this was an idea that was thrown around a couple of years ago that stated that pronghorn have vision 10 times more powerful than that of our own, and thus could see the rings of Saturn. Now, while they do have magnified vision, it's actually roughly 8 times that of our own. And in order to see Saturn, you would need magnification roughly 25 to 50 times that of our own. So yes, while they can see things closer than we can, Saturn would look more like a circle with lines sticking out of it, rather than the clearer image that was predicted. Still, this 8 times vision is very good, and would have helped the animal to spot predators from far away. Sadly, the diversity of this family began to decline towards the end of the Pleistocene, for unknown reasons, leaving the pronghorn as the last surviving member of a once weird and diverse group, a trend mirrored by their closest relatives, the giraffes. Now, like the last video, this is barely scratching the surface of weird giraffes from the past. I mean, there are still so many giraffe species I haven't talked about. So, if you want a part 3 in this series, or want me to talk about other families of animals that have weird extinct relatives, then let me know below. But until then, if you want to learn about other weird giraffe relatives, click the video on the screen. Until next time, bye-bye.